Shadow of Mordor, while it's not a bad game and has plenty of things to recommend it, did not deserve the hype it received, right? The gameplay is polished and effective, and has a mixture of free running, which is very much like Assassin's Creed, and a combat system from the Batman Arkham games. It's all set in an open world, so there's good scope for exploration, and plenty of things to see, but actually managing that is quite difficult as there are packs of orcs and uruks absolutely everywhere. It's damn near impossible to get anywhere without getting sucked into a massive fight, which, even with a decent combat system, can get a bit repetitive to say the least. Part of the issue is that although the game does have stealth elements, they are very underdeveloped and very basic. You can perform stealth kills and, much like Assassin's Creed, hide in bushes and of course behind walls, but that's about it. That makes it quite tricky to move around big groups, and more often than not you get bogged down in combat, which again is fine at first, but it gets repetitive very quickly because the combat system is just not that engaging for fights that go on for that long. Like the first Assassin's Creed game, Shadow of Mordor feels kind of light on customization and depth. You unlock upgrades and stuff as you go along, but it's not deep enough to keep things interesting, and it feels a bit counterintuitive, especially since the game gives off a good action RPG vibe. It almost makes you expect customization as a given, but it's just not there. Granted, there is a rune system for the weapons, but that's pretty much the entire depth of the customization that you get to do. You can't switch out your weapons, you can't particularly customize your armor. It's okay, but it's not as deep as it could be, and it kind of takes away from the feel of the game. The game has a solid foundation. The combination of the styles of Assassin's Creed and Batman actually works really well, don't get me wrong, but it's hardly groundbreaking. It's nothing new, it's nothing revolutionary, it's just a solid system that has worked before for a couple of other games. And it does here too, but the problem is that's all it is. There's nothing to write home about in terms of the fights the game provides, or the way in which your character moves. It's just the same stuff you've seen before. Don't get me wrong, there are some really nice things in the game, like the Nemesis system, where you can create power vacuums in the Orc army by killing war chiefs and captains and the like. If you get killed, you make the enemy that killed you stronger than before. That system is great, and it's a nice take on what is, in essence, a fairly boring system of progressing the game just by assassinating targets. Without it, that would get even more repetitive than it already is. I mean, you're doing the same thing pretty much every single time, which is just hunting down the target and killing them. You can interrogate enemies to get more information on your targets and so on, but that's pretty much all there is to it. Find your target, hunt the target, kill the target. The fact that the target can get more powerful if you fail is a nice touch, but it's still not exactly groundbreaking. Finally, the story is weird. It's just weird. Shadow of Mordor isn't canon in the Lord of the Rings universe, and they've added in some totally unnecessary enemies and creatures that don't really feel like they belong in that universe. Taking an unknown character and making his story the tale that part of him crafted the One Ring is also a bit over the top, frankly. The only real connection that you feel to Lord of the Rings is the fact that Gollum turns up. Everything else could just be standard fantasy story number 9000 and whatever. It feels like the game was made in the Lord of the Rings universe, not because it particularly fits the Lord of the Rings universe, but to push it out to an audience that it otherwise wouldn't reach. I do know that there are a few people who've complained about this, and I can kind of see why, if I'm honest. The thing is though, all in all, Shadow of Mordor is not a bad game. People have been getting upset when comparisons are made between Shadow of Mordor and Assassin's Creed and Batman, but they shouldn't, because those games have solid base mechanics that Shadow of Mordor has used really effectively. It's well polished, it's well thought out, and it's enjoyable even if it is really quite repetitive. It's a perfectly good game, but at the same time, that's all it is. It's not groundbreaking, it's not innovative, it's good, but it's also absolutely not deserving the amount of hype it's received, or the declaration that it's some kind of shining light in the gaming industry. For me, Shadow of Mordor just doesn't deserve the hype it's got. It deserves the truth though, which is much simpler and it's a lot easier to see, which is that the game is good. It's just not that good. Thanks for watching, see you next time.
Mad swine! You left me to die, you schrock! But I didn't! Now I'm gonna show you the pain I was in!